Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 82. This week I am going to do something a little different. I asked in the membership and free community what they would like to see in the Wellness for Women shows, and one of the suggestions was book reviews. Now, I love a good self-development book, and having read a few, this seemed like an absolutely genius idea. So I set about looking at all the books I had read and the notes I made, thinking I would do a summary of all of them. But to be perfectly honest, they are all just too good. And so this is certainly the case for this book that I'm going to talk about today. And so I decided that each one will have its own episode, jam-packed full of my takeaways and my unique spin. So then came a decision. Where do I start? How do I pick from all these amazing books? And in the end, the decision was easy. Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. Hers wasn't the first self-development book that I read, but I know it had a big impact on me. I also use the phrase everything is figureoutable several times a week, if not several times a day. So it seems like a really good place to start. Now, I make notes when I read books like these. I don't know about you. In fact, my note taking and note keeping has got a little bit geeky after learning about the concept of the second brain. But this is a story for another time. But coming up to do this, it sure did help to be able to go back to those notes. And I have to say, it reminded me of a few concepts, and it was also really quite reaffirming in other places as well. And so what I just wanted to say was take some notes, jot down some things as you go through life. I usually use OneNote mostly as my second brain to capture these things. I use it for work, for personal, for business. And I mostly started this by accident. I was basically just sick of saying I've read that somewhere and then not knowing where I had read it. So now I have a searchable resource. So whenever I need something, it saves me so much time and energy having in effect my own little version of Wikipedia. So if you want me to do an episode on the concept of the second brain, let me know. Anyway, getting back into it. So let's get clear from the outset. Why do I think you should read or grab the audiobook Everything Is Figureoutable? Well, for me personally, after reading it, I really started to feel unstoppable, that I could choose who I wanted to be and build that life. And I had perhaps been building to that moment. It wasn't the first book that I had read. I'd been working on myself a wee while by that point, from memory anyway, but I absolutely absorbed this book like a sponge. And Marie tells the story of how she asked her mum, how do you know to do things when nobody has shown you? And her mum turned around to her and said, nothing is that complicated in life. If you just roll up your sleeves and get in there and you do it, everything is figureoutable. And Marie talks about how this blew her mind, and it absolutely blew mine too. So I've always been a doer. I've always been someone who was capable of figuring most things out, someone who was generally good at and enjoyed problem solving. I loved things like murder mysteries, logic puzzles, and I guess I would have prided myself in being capable. But, and here's the big but, I would have only taken it so far, and in some cases not try at all because I perhaps thought that it was too hard or I wouldn't be able to do it. But actually, if you just roll up your sleeves and give it a go, who knows what's going to happen, right? And I've said so many times on the show that I am a recovering perfectionist. Now, perfectionism, wanting to do a good job, doing the right thing, etc., is not a bad thing. Of course it's not. Nothing is intrinsically good or bad. And I still pride myself on doing things well and right. The recovering part comes in the fact that I took it too far. And I've worked really hard on myself so that I don't beat myself up anymore. I don't worry ahead of time, which was ultimately pointless. And I certainly don't look to do anything in a perfectionist way to the point where my health and well-being are affected. And I've learned how to give myself more grace and to be kind to me. And that's all thanks to my weight loss with love journey. But I've also learned how I can work through my limits and, more importantly, any limiting beliefs that are holding me back. And it's a funny thing, really, that you can strive for something like being perfect or good at something, only to then put so much pressure on yourself that you end up not doing the thing you want to do, not being the person that you want to be, and then not reaching your full potential. We can try so hard, to be perfect that we then end up not being perfect as a result. And I see this all the time in weight loss as well, how we can want it so bad, but then the pressure of wanting it so bad means that we then don't take the actions and then we don't lose the weight. And looking back on my notes, and I think Marie was the first person who started me off realizing that this was the importance of our beliefs, which has ultimately led me on the journey that I am now. And the pinnacle of that is me becoming, not only a life coach, but also a belief coding facilitator as well. And I was taught through life coaching that our thoughts lead to our feelings, lead to our actions, and onto our results. And maybe I was taught that our thoughts come from our beliefs, and that thoughts can be beliefs, of course, as well. But I either didn't receive that information, or it didn't sink in. It didn't make sense at the time, whereas it really does now. And our beliefs and the importance of working on those beliefs are absolutely critical. Hence why it's all about working on our relationship with food. But to quote Marie in the book, she says, "There can be no change in the world unless we have the courage to change ourselves. And in order to change ourselves, we must first believe that we can." This is so true. We can go around wishing and wanting our lives to be different. We can want to achieve our goals, to lose weight, to get the house, to land the dream job, but it takes courage. Courage to try, courage to take a loving look within ourselves and examine the beliefs that have shaped our thoughts for so long. It takes courage to question those ingrained beliefs and consider the possibility of new ones. But I have to remember that it's not necessarily as hard as you might think to change and shape your reality. You just have to be prepared to take a little step with love into unfamiliar territory. And it just means working on rejecting those old ways that don't serve you and the courage to explore new paths. And it also means standing up to your inner critic, the inner critic who tells you that you'll never be good enough or deserving or happy. And it's about stopping playing over and over again those old stories like old records in your mind, because those are ultimately what's leading to you getting the same results over and over again and feeling stuck because you're just playing the same record. And it's time to break that cycle. It's time to break that mold. And this book really supercharged this for me. And Marie encourages her readers to ask questions, because ultimately this is how our brains are designed. We ask it a question, it goes to solve a problem. Problem is sometimes it's asking the wrong question. It's trying to solve the wrong problem with the wrong thing. So, for example, in emotional eating, it thinks that the solve to our emotions is food. It sends us to food. We have to break this cycle. And ultimately, this is what I can help with as a coach and a facilitator. I ask questions. I hold up a mirror to you so that you can see the answers when you're struggling to do so yourself. But you can also ask the questions of yourself. But the key is to make sure that you're asking empowering questions. So rather than why can't I lose weight? What's wrong with me? It would be how can I lose weight? So I don't know if you can feel the shift between those two statements. Very similar question, but huge difference in energy. And I also like to try and encourage empowering questions as much as I can into my methods. And so my method, the AAA way. And so in my planner, for example, it says, how can I move forward with love? And what can I learn from today? Rather than what must I do and what went wrong, which are quite disempowering and, not ones that we'd necessarily want to answer. And this also is about working with our thoughts and trying to catch any thoughts that are limiting us. So she highlights, for example, so Marie highlights that certain phrases can limit us. So the phrase, I don't know, or even I already know, because they can close down our creativity. And it's about trying to flip our thoughts. So rather than saying this won't work for me, which is very limiting, saying how can this work for me? And these are just very minor but yet powerful shifts. And she also pops out some other gems throughout the book, like the most powerful words in the universe are the ones that you say to yourself. All beliefs are choices, and choices can be changed. And the worst lies are the lies that we tell ourselves. Now, she said these at various sections throughout the book, but I've lumped them together because for me, they all had a running theme. that we are responsible for ourselves, that we can empower ourselves, we can take control of our beliefs and our thoughts, and ultimately then change our lives. And I don't know about you, but that actually gives me the chills. I want to be in control of my life, my destiny, to be the person I want to be. And the question is, do you want that as well? Do you want to take the bull by the horns and change your life, or do you want to sit back and let it happen to you and around you? Now, there's no judgment from me. The latter is absolutely fine, but I know for me which one I choose. I want to sort my shit out. I don't want to be the one standing in my own way. I don't want to be there saying I can't, saying that I don't know where to start and that I don't have the time or I don't have the resources, whatever it might be. I want to figure it out, because everything is figureoutable. And so what's holding you back? What is stopping you right now from figuring it out, whether that be in life or weight loss? And in the book, Marie has a whole chapter about fear. Maybe it is fear that is holding you back. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of being seen, fear of judgment, fear of getting hurt, fear of losing yourself, fear of finding yourself. And it's okay to be afraid, but you don't have to stay there. And I honestly think I could quote Marie all day. And she says that fear is false evidence appearing real. And that fear is a bit like a baby. It can't really talk. It can only send signals. It sends feelings, and those feelings don't feel very good. And so that's when we kind of have that, what she says, the false evidence appearing real, because it can all seem very, very strong and very urgent, because these feelings feel really shitty, right? And so we try to avoid those feelings. And then when we try to avoid the thing, we're often then avoiding the thing that would actually help us, or we can end up avoiding it and then buffering, trying to buffer our feelings away. So for any of us who've struggled with emotional eating, that could be heading towards food, or it could be games, or it could be drink or gambling or drugs or whatever it might be. So again, just like with perfectionism, it's funny how our brains work, that we can be so fearful of something that we don't take action to solve the problem. And in doing so, the fear wins. And what we were scared about is then actually likely to come true. Whereas if we didn't listen to the fear and we question, well, is that true or not true? And we push through it with love, then we would not only get rid of the fear, but likely achieve the thing, whatever that thing might be that we were trying to do in the first place. And of course, fear has its place in our range of emotions. It did used to keep us safe when it was the cave people days. And the same is often the case with other emotions that can sometimes be perceived as negative, like doubt and anger and overwhelm. They may be uncomfortable feelings, but they do have a purpose. They are trying to tell us something. The difference is you don't have to necessarily accept them as true, and you get to decide if they stay or if they go, because you ultimately have the power to decide on what your beliefs and thoughts should be, and that ultimately everything is figureoutable. So I'm going to leave you with my final thoughts. My final thoughts is everything is figureoutable. It really is. If we just look to work on it. If we don't work on it at all, then it won't change. If we look to work on it, it's got to tip eventually. And if you want to figure it out, 1,000%, I believe that you can. And ultimately, I'm here to help you on your journey if you want it. And my encouragement to you is to take time to reflect on the episode, to read the book. I'll make sure that there is a link for it in the descriptions. And then pop into one of the Wellness for Women groups, pop into the free Facebook group. Again, the links for that's in the description. Or if you're in the membership, then obviously pop into the membership. If you're not in the membership, come along, join the membership. Tell me what your takeaways are. Tell me what you take away from that book. And then I'd encourage you to revisit it at a later date as well. But just have a think, how are you going to apply the episode? What have you learned? What could you do? What baby steps could you take on your journey with love right now that would help you to figure it out? And I say, if you need any help, you know where I am. Other than that, I am going to love you and leave you this week. So bye for now.